Just catch up with some of the other news this hour as well, because Air France and the plane maker Airbus are facing involuntary manslaughter charges at a court in Paris. That's 13 years after a flight from Rio de Janeiro crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, killing all 228 people on board. Flight recorders suggested that the pilots didn't respond correctly when speed sensors iced over. Civil parties hope to get answers from the two aviation giants, who both still deny responsibility for the disaster. Let's speak to our Paris correspondent Hugh Schofield, who joins us live now. This has been a long time in coming, hasn't it, Hugh? Why such a delay?
Well, I mean, part of the reason is that court cases in France always take inordinately long, quite extraordinarily long periods of time. So that's the sort of general background. But there is a complicating factor in all of this, which is that the criminal investigation into all of this went through all sorts of twists and turns. And at one point, the examining magistrates who were leading the criminal inquiry into the investigation into the crash said that their decision was that there should be no criminal proceedings. They decided that there was no criminal liability as far as they could detect. That angered greatly the families of victims. They appealed against that, so there was a long appeal process, and then finally the appeals court said, well, actually we disagree with the original finding. There will be a court case. We think there are grounds for Airbus and Air France to stand actual trial, and that's what's happening now. But it's been a very, very long, tortuous few years, one of course which has only added to the anxiety and the need of the families to get answers and to see what they expect from a court, which is criminal responsibility attaching to Airbus and Air France. Although of course both of them are going to be fighting this battle very hard indeed.
How rare is it for companies in France to be charged with involuntary manslaughter?
Well, not rare. I mean,
I think we've lost Hugh, unfortunately. More on that story in the next edition of Impact. Hang on, I think Hugh has come back. Hugh, sorry, you just said it wasn't that rare. Yeah. Just continue. We lost you for a moment.
I'm just saying that companies, corporations are often taken to court in this kind of way. Sometimes they'll be named individuals, but often it'll be just as it is here, the actual corporation, which is up in the dock. What they face in terms of a fine is minimal. It's sort of chicken feed for the companies. But of course, what's really at stake for them is their reputation.
And just a reminder that what is their defence for this?
Well, I mean, it's quite. What happened is known. These pitot tubes, as they're called, which are speedometers on the fuselage, they froze up. They were defective in some way, and then inside the cockpit, the crew reacted badly. They did not do what they should have done. That is all quite clear because the flight recordings were recuperated from the sea 2 years after the crash itself. But that's not the end of it. What the families are saying, what the unions of pilots are saying, is that it's no good blaming the pilots for everything. There was blame attaching also and criminal liability attaching to Air France because it didn't train the pilots properly, and to Airbus because they should have made much more of a big deal about these defective pitot tubes. There had been problems already in sort of minor problems on flights, but that had not triggered enough of an alarm bell at Airbus to warn operators like Air France that there were potential problems possibly lying ahead. So in both those aspects, Air France and Airbus, according to the prosecution, are liable for this because they failed to take preemptive, preventative action beforehand.
OK, Hugh Schofield with the latest. Thank you very much indeed.